Okay, hey everybody. Welcome to or welcome back to Mortuary Files. My name is Rick. This fellow right over here is my big brother Randy. How you doing, Randy?
Hey, buddy. All righty. Yes, I am his big, big baby brother. I'm his big baby brother because
Yeah,
everybody knows I spoiled.
yeah, you were
I'm
spoiled.
spoiled one. I get everything I want. Welcome to Mortuary Files. Today I think we got a good one for you. We're going to go a little bit more in depth than what we've done before. So we're not going to do much of a question and answering where it's all over the place. We're going to do it strictly on embalming.
Yeah.
We got a question from Jay again, which we're really happy for. And Rick, Jay wants to know everything in embalming. So why don't we start? Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Why don't we start from the beginning? Somebody dies. Let's take it. You get a call. Let's talk about what happens when you get a call. Bill, you got to go pick up somebody at a hospital.
Yeah, I got it.
What's the first thing you do?
Okay, so the call can come in from several different places. You can get and they're called several different things. It's all the same, but it's either a death call, it's a first call, an initial call. Um, Depending on where you're working, they just call them different, but it's all the same thing. You either get a call from the hospital nurse, or you get a call from a hospice nurse, or you get a call from a coroner or medical examiner, and they've already gotten permission from the family to give us a call. Usually, the family themselves doesn't call us directly.
All right, so
And
you pick up the body. You-
yeah, I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm sound asleep and had an hour and a half of sleep, and that happened a lot. We'd get up, put on a suit and tie. We did not put on a golf shirt and a pair of slacks. We put on a suit and a tie at 2 o'clock in the morning and drove. In my case, I drove 35 miles from my house to the funeral home, picked up a hearse, and would wait for my partner to get there because we usually sent out two people. We would go to wherever that person was at. It would either be in the hospital morgue, a hospital room, or it'd be in a home, where someone's under hospice, um, or be a house unattended death, which is usually the police department or coroner would call us to come to a home if it was not a unexpected death, if it was a suicide, or if it was just someone that died that wasn't expected to die.
Now, you would only pick up that body at that point if it was released, correct?
It has to be released by the family
Okay. Or
to us.
now what about the coroner? I
And
mean,
then once the coroner gets permission of who to call, then they call us. And they usually call us immediately because they don't want to hold on to people any longer than they have to.
okay.
Because there are some coroners and some medical examiners. I've been to the Fulton County Medical Examiner in Atlanta, and they had like 50 people in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
They only had 12 tables.
With
They
standing
had
room
50
only.
people. They
Yeah.
had 50 people, but 12 tables. So I'm not going to explain to you how those people were
Stacked up.
laying in
Yeah.
there. They want people to come get them as quickly as they can because they don't have room for
Yeah.
that many people.
So now you got the body, you head back to the funeral home. What's next?
Yeah. Depending on the time of day, like I said, by this time it would be about 4 o'clock in the morning, probably. I would try to probably go back home, get a few hours sleep. Even though I was up all night, I was still required by my funeral home to be back there at 9 o'clock in the morning. They don't give you a break. They don't care if you're up all night. They really don't care.
Not an easy job.
No, it's not. And people don't realize there's a lot of sleep deprivation that goes on
If you want
with funeral
sleep,
directors.
if you want to sleep, don't become a funeral director.
Right? Yeah. Um, we've slept in chairs in the hallway of the funeral home, just trying to get a couple hours of something before we had to get back up and get back to it. So I'd usually go home, try to get 2 or 3 hours sleep, take a quick shower, come back, and then by 9 o'clock I would be embalming that person,
So,
assuming, of course, that I had permission from the family by that
well,
time.
we're assuming you have permission. You got the person, you come into work, and what's the first thing you do
Yeah.
with the body to get them ready for embalming?
And everybody has their own method of doing this, but I'm gonna tell you how I did it. I didn't like to embalm a body until I washed it first. I like to bathe the body. A body's never just totally nude. Very rarely is somebody just laying there in the nude. If they're in a hospital, they usually have at least a hospital gown on. If it's a home death, they're usually either dressed, partly dressed, have pajamas, and if it's an unexpected death, they're usually fully clothed. But you take all those clothes, save those for the family because for some reason they could be soiled and everything else and have blood on them and whatever, and people still want them back. We would throw them away. Where's his pants at that he was wearing? Well, we put them in the trash. Oh no, I want those. So we got to the point where we would just save everything and give all those clothes back to them. But once they were undressed, placed on this table, then I always gave them a bath every single time with antibiotic soap. I want to protect myself. I want as much as possible. I want them to. It helps kill the odor of because bodies do have an odor, and it helps knock that down. After I've given them a bath, that includes their hair and everything else. Then the next thing I would do was I would close their eyes, and in order to close people's eyes, they have a tendency to dry out. Now I've got a little black eye right here, but so I'll show you this one. But once you close somebody's eye, I have a tendency for this right here, this eyelid, to dehydrate and dry out. And so they have a tendency to want to open if you don't do something extra to keep that closed. The most common thing that we use in the old days, they used a little piece of cotton in there. They would just take the eyelid and pull it down over the cotton, and that just helped it stick in place. And then years later, they developed what was called an eye cap, which is just a little plastic piece of an oval piece of plastic, the shape of the eyeball, and that goes up underneath the eyelid, and you pull the eyelid down over top of that, and that generally is enough to hold it in place because that eye cap has little tiny barbs in it, which the skin sticks on and prevents it from sliding. And if you're really worried about them opening, and you can tell by the end of the time you're embalming whether they're going to open or not, you just take a drop of adhesive glue. There's this clear glue. It looks like super glue. It's not super glue, but it's very similar to that. But it's just this eye adhesive, and you basically glue them shut with that. Once their eyes are closed, the next thing would be their mouth, because people's muscles all relax when they die, and the mouth is almost always open. It's almost
Like a gape.
yes. And so if you go into, especially hospice nurses are real good about this. I love hospice nurses. They will take towels and roll them up and push their chin up. It makes them look more dignified in the bed for the family, but as soon as you move those towels, it opens back up again. So in order to close those, a lot of people don't have all their teeth. A lot of people don't have dentures, and you can't close somebody's mouth that doesn't have teeth or dentures and without doing something, an extra step, because they would look like this. They would be just like, your old grandma that was, sitting there chewing. That's what their mouth would look like, be like that. So you put what's called a mouth former up underneath their lips, and it shapes the mouth, and it has those same type barbs I was talking about with that plastic piece you put under their eyes, and that helps keep uh, the lips from separating. But as an extra step to close the mouth, you put these two mouth barbs right here, and with a needle. They're needle injectors, and the needle goes here, and the needle goes here, and they're about maybe 6 or 7 inches long, kind of like a twist tie of a trash bag. And you close the mouth to what looks natural, and you simply tie that. And then once it's tied off and the mouth is closed, it's in place. If you need to, you can put a little cotton in their cheeks to help fill that out.
That would be under the lips then, eh?
Underneath the lips, yeah.
Yeah, so you would, or wherever you tie it, that would be underneath the lips, and then you would
Hmm.
be concealing it by closing the lips up.
Right, and if they had dehydration and his lip got real small or real thin, you can take a little roll of cotton and put it underneath here, and it kind of helps puff the lip back out to make it look like it's more
More
full.
natural.
Mhm. And there's other things. There are people that lose a lot of weight.
This is all
There
prep.
are
This is all prep, right?
Yeah, this is all prep work. And there are putties that you can put up in here to help fill in. A lot of times you get real gaunt up in here. And to
Yeah.
fill that out, there's this putty that you can put in there, and it will just simply expand that out. And then you smooth it out with your fingers.
That's
And
on
that,
the outside of the skin.
well, that's up underneath the skin,
Up
the putty.
underneath the skin.
But
Okay.
then with your hand, you just kind of
In the
smooth
jaw,
it,
you mean?
even in the jaw. You smooth it from the outside, though.
But I mean, you would place it in the jaw,
Sure.
like a chalk, like a
It's like a
chalk of
putty.
tobacco,
It's like a putty.
kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, yeah, but it's inside the mouth.
Yeah, inside the mouth, and
Okay.
it dries and it holds its shape. And then once all that's done, then the next thing to do is you first of all let's talk about what embalming actually is other than this prep work we've been talking about. Okay, so before we go into more detail about how we embalm, let's talk about why we embalm. Embalming is done for three main reasons, and they teach you this in school. It's preservation, preserving the body, presentation to make it look better than it did when they died, and sanitation to help clean and cleanse the body on the outside, especially to help protect the public. So presentation, preservation, and then sanitation. That's the reason and embalming is not the same. You always hear about Egyptian embalming. We're not doing Egyptian embalming. Egyptian embalming is making mummies. They did that 4,000 years ago in Egypt. That's where these mummies come from. That's not what we're doing. It's a whole different thing. Even though they call that embalming, it's not what we do. They put stuff in jars, and that's a whole nother subject. Um, and our style of embalming today didn't even start until the Civil War. Some guy named Holmes, I forget his first name, Dr. Holmes, I can't remember his first name. He invented it during the Civil War, and the officers who died, who had a family with enough money, could pay him. He would have them embalmed and return back home. Because remember, they were only a state or two away from where they lived. They weren't off in some foreign land. They weren't that far away. But if they weren't embalmed, they were buried right there. That's why there's Civil War cemeteries all over the place. They were not sent home. They were buried on the place where they died. But if they were embalmed, they could be put on a wagon and taken back home. And so that started in the Civil War. And I think Abraham Lincoln was the first president that was ever embalmed. I
I
don't think
think
any presidents were embalmed before that.
I think you're right, and it's Dr. Thomas Holmes, by the way.
Thomas, thank you very much. Not Johnny. Okay.
Not Johnny, not Johnny. Oh, all right. So now you get the body, you've prepped the body. Now bodies come in two different ways. Autopsied and not autopsied.
That's true. And I'm talking about a regular embalming right now. I'm having touched autopsy bodies because you have to describe them separately.
Okay.
So what embalming is at that point is you're simply injecting embalming fluid into the venous system. And the way you do that is you raise the carotid artery and the jugular vein, which both raise up or they come together right here below the skin, right about where I'm touching. And so I would, and on my side, it's actually on the right side that I would raise them. It'd be right about here, and you lift those above the skin, and you put a bone separator underneath those, so you have access to them. You make an injection with a scalpel, and you stick a aneurysm hook inside the carotid artery, heading toward the heart. And as you pump that fluid toward the heart sort of circulates around the heart, and it goes out to all the different parts of the body. Basically, it's just one big loop. It goes down this side of the body and then comes back up from this side and then back around the head and then back down here, and it drains out of the vein. And that drain, you'll see blood start to come out there. And all that blood then goes down onto from a tube down onto the table. And you know that they're embalmed when they begin to firm up and when the blood turns to fluid and their fingertips clear and their face gets color, and you've already positioned their hands, their eyes, and the mouth. We didn't talk about the hands, but you position the hands usually somewhere here. Um, and that whole process only takes about 45 minutes if you know what you're doing. If you have problems with clotting and that sort of thing, that you have to do other things that take a little longer. Once you're done with that, that's the arterial embalming. Then there's viscera embalming because that I just described gets everything except the major organs. That does not affect the major organs. You have to do major organs separately. And by major organs, I'm talking about the heart, I'm talking about the lungs, you got the liver, the kidney, stomach, the bladder. All those organs have to be injected with fluid separately. The fluid doesn't reach them the way we just described. So in order to get to all those, you have to have a what's called a trocar. And a trocar is a tube about that long, and it's about that thick. And the fluid goes through that trocar to a very sharp tip down here, and you insert that right below to the right of their belly button, and if you know what you're doing, you come straight up here and you hit their heart. If you can hit the heart with that on your first time, you can drain all the rest of the blood out of the body from the heart, and then you go to the lungs, and then the liver, the kidneys, and so on, until all of those have been injected with fluid.
You stick the trocar in the body, and then you are guiding it to
I'm guiding it, yeah.
the areas to where you wanna and how do
Yeah.
you know when you hit what you hit? Obviously, experience will tell you later on, but how do you know?
Well, the heart is a muscle, and it's about that big. So when you hit that, if it's especially if it's not real sharp, if it's a duller, you might have to do it 2 or 3 times before you can feel it puncture. And on a brand new, if it has a brand new tip on it, sometimes you don't even know you've hit the heart, but usually you can tell. And same thing with the lungs. The lungs are fibrous. You can tell when you hit the lungs. Now the bladder and stuff, you have to be a little more careful there because it's very easy to puncture the bladder. Um, but and you know right where those things are, and you just kind of feel around with that. And
That's where your experience plays in afterwards as time goes on, as go longer and longer, you do more and more
yeah, because what you're doing at
involvement.
that point is this first thing that's sucking the blood out of those things when you hit those. And then later you come back with a special fluid, which is cavity fluid, and you hit the heart again and inject cavity fluid with a gravity fed bottle. And then you hit the lungs again with that same gravity fed bottle of fluid and put fluid back in the lungs. And then you put with all the other ones too, with all the other organs. And then
So the trocar sucks the fluids out,
that's right, because you reverse that. It sucks
and
the fluids
then
out.
but you don't use the trocar to put fluids back in, you use what?
No, you do use a
You
trocar,
do
you just
you.
don't use this you don't use the machine at that point.
Okay,
You just put a
gravity fed.
bottle on the end of it and let
Okay.
it gravity feed down into them.
Okay, and then you know you're done with those. So when you do the circulation system, when the blood ends and the embalming fluid starts to flow, it clears up. How do you know with the internal organs when you've done it right?
Well, once you're when you're again, basically when the blood stops to flow out of the organs, you can see that because the tube is clear,
Okay.
and so you can see when it stops,
Well, I guess you're using the trocar and you're sucking out the fluids. You're sucking out air at that time
either air
when you're
or
done.
fluids that have gotten there from the other embalming you've already
Okay.
done, because you do the other type of embalming first.
Okay. All right.
Vascular embalming is done first.
All right, so you're done with that. I'm sure at that point, you're gonna have to stitch them up where you've
Mhm,
made
you
the
do.
incisions.
And so you go back into where I was just talking about. If you've done a good job with the hitting the heart, you won't have any leakage in those vessels there. At this point, those vessels, you've released them and they're back down underneath the skin. And then you'll put some powder in there, some drying powder, and certain types of stitches we use with a needle that's about that long. And you just make your incisions. And if you're good, especially on a lady that's going to wear a dress and you don't want that to show, I got to be pretty good at what's called an internal interdermal hidden stitch, which is basically closing that from underneath. The stitches didn't show on the outside; they were inside this tissue, and so when I pulled those out, the skin was flat. You didn't see baseball stitches. But if you weren't worried about if it was a guy, you just use baseball stitches a lot quicker and put some glue on it, and you're done. And then you give them another bath again. You bathe them one more time, and you move them off the embalming table, assuming that everything looks good. Put them on a sheet, put a sheet over them, and then you basically just let them dry there in place. Comb his hair. And one of the things I didn't mention was part of the embalming process is if it's a man, you want to make sure it's clean shaven. You want to make sure their fingernails are clean. Um, Some people don't do that right away. They let somebody else do it. But I always thought that was should be part of the embalming process, and I always did it while I was embalming or before I started the embalming.
In the
You comb their hair while their hair's still wet, and then let them dry. And by that time, the family's probably about ready to come in, and they usually bring clothes. And within an hour or two of them bringing in the clothes, that person's usually dressed and just waiting for a casket to be selected.
At this point, he is not adjustable anymore. You can't position him.
He's mildly adjustable, but he's much more firm than he was. Yeah,
And does the firming process go on
it
after
does.
this?
Yeah,
Okay.
it does for the next probably 24 hours. It just continues to get firmer.
And that's from the embalming fluid.
Mm.
And is embalming fluid made to do that, or is it just does it?
Oh yeah, it's made. It has a firming action. It's made
Okay.
to do that. Yep.
It's made to do that. And what does it do that makes you get, I hate to use it in this firm, but does it plastic up?
There's actually a embalming fluid called plastique.
So
So
maybe it
I
is a
don't know what the
plastic
chemical. I don't know what the chemical thing
makeup.
that happens,
Yeah.
but I do know that there's a transfer that takes place, and formaldehyde is, even though it's in a liquid bottle, it's formaldehyde's not a liquid. Formaldehyde is a gas, and it's suspended in a formalin basis that's liquid formalin, and the gas inside of that is the actual embalming fluid per se.
So the
Um,
embalming fluid
the
really is,
formaldehyde, the formaldehyde itself is in a gas form inside that fluid. So when it goes in the body, there's a chemical reaction that takes place. You're basically removing the oxygen from the body and replacing it with this formaldehyde.
so it really is designed to firm
Yes, it is.
everything up.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Don't you ever laugh as the hearse goes by, for you may be the next to die. They wrap you up in a big white sheet, from your head down to your feet. They put you